You could actually start it right now.
The
All right,
broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Good morning, everyone. We're going to wait just another minute and let everyone get in and signed on and ready to go. All right, good afternoon. My name is Andrew Young, and I will be your host today on our second webinar in the series for the 2014 Transportation Site Impact Handbook. In this webinar, we will go over the first portion of Chapter 2 of the Transportation Site Impact Handbook. The second chapter is called the Transportation Impact Process. Chapter 2 is the largest chapter in the handbook, and therefore we will spend at least 2 webinars on this chapter. Today we have with us many of the people who helped to rewrite the handbook. They are here today to go over the major changes and also to answer your questions if possible. We have Gary Sokolow, myself, Andrew Young, and Gina Bagnani from the FDOT Systems Planning Office. We also have Nathan Hicks from CDM Smith. He helped to put together this presentation, and he will also be helping answer some questions for us today. Though we do not all have formal speaking parts, all of us here have experience in different aspects of impact analyses, level of service calculations, growth management, and modeling. So as you ask questions, we are all available to help with our specific knowledge. There are a number of questions that come up every time, and we'd like to get those answered at the start. At the end of this presentation, give us a few days and we'll get you a copy of the presentation materials. We will be offering credits for the American Planning Association, and the number you see next to CM credits, you can use that number in order to make your job easier in obtaining those credits. The PDH credits for professional engineers are available through proof of attendance. In the past webinar, we sent certified lists of attendees with all the information necessary for your honor system credits as a professional engineer. Each of our presentations will be made into a recording. We will try to have this done as soon as possible, but editing the video takes a little bit, so give us some time as we get that put together, and we'll send that out to everyone as well. Since this is a webinar, you will be muted. However, you can ask questions in the Question tab dialog box as I will demonstrate shortly. Please ask your questions as they come up, and we will try to get to them as quickly as possible. I am sure there will be questions that we can't answer immediately or questions of a philosophical nature. These we may have to discuss at a later time or send you answers via email. I'm going to briefly discuss with you how to participate in today's webinar using the GoToWebinar control panel. By clicking the orange arrow, you can open and close your control panel. From the View menu, you can also set the control panel not to auto-hide when inactive if you prefer to keep it always open. The audio pane provides audio information. By default, you have joined the webinar via mic and speakers. Click Audio Setup to select your computer speaker or headset devices. If you prefer, you can join with audio via the telephone by selecting Use Telephone, and the dial-in information will be displayed, including an audio pin. If you would like to ask any questions of today's presenters over the phone, you must enter your audio pin in order to have your line unmuted. If you have a question, you can send them through the Questions pane. Simply type in your question and click Send. You may also raise your hand if you have a question. If you have joined us with the capability of using your microphone, we will then unmute you so you can ask a question that everyone can hear. We will be able to take questions and answers throughout today's webinar. At this point, I would like to, we have changed the handbook by adding the word site to clarify what kind of impact this handbook is about. One of the nice things that has not changed is the website where you can get the latest versions and any changes or additions we make along the way. The link is the same, and it is included on this page. All right, before we begin most of our webinars, we like to have an idea of who is out there. So but not just the numbers of people, but also who they represent. So Gary, if you could pull up the first poll.
Yes, I will do that. This is Gary. Um, First thing we want to ask you is who you represent, and I'm going to launch the poll, give you a few moments to answer it, and then we'll see. All right. Okay, quite a few of you answered. Got almost 90% of the people answering, and I'm going to close the poll and I'm going to share it with you. And look at that.
Looks like the majority are from local or regional government and consulting. Just a small contingent of folks from Florida DOT.
Yeah, we got to do something about that.
All right. Well, thank you everyone for voting. All right. So as I mentioned just a little bit ago, you can go to the link to access the Transportation Site Impact Handbook. Once you go to the website, you'll be given a choice to download the PDF document. Simply hover your mouse and right mouse click over the Save Target As. You can download the document to your computer. When you open the handbook in its PDF version, it opens with the bookmarks on the left for easy navigation to the parts that you want to access. There are a few things I'd like to tell you about the navigation of this document. The first is that we have a detailed bookmark section that should make the navigation a little bit easier for you. Second is that the page numbering has been done in such a way to make it easy to find the references. This isn't as easy as it seems on the surface. However, we have made it easier by starting page numbering at the cover. We will show you how this can make a positive difference. When you begin the numbering at the cover, then the page numbers of the document are the same as the page numbers as they were represented in the Adobe Acrobat are the same. So when we tell you an answer is on page 134, you don't have to scroll around looking at the bottom right for the page number. You can simply enter the 134 in the page number portion of your PDF reader program. All right, we'll have another poll here. We would like to ask you if you attended our last webinar in April. So Gary will pull that up for us. All right, we'll give it a few more moments here for everyone to cast their vote. All right. Looks like about 70%.
Looks like most of the people have voted. I'm going to close it.
Yeah, it looks like about 70%.
And you tell me when you're ready to start back with the presentation, Andrew.
Okay. We can start back. It looks like about 70% did attend. So the majority of folks out there have attended our last webinar.
And we appreciate it.
And we really do appreciate that. All right. As most professional documents, we do need to make you aware that transportation impact analysis is as much an art as a science. That being said, we put a caveat at the bottom of every page, and I'd like you to read it. And what it says is, we have tried to have the most up-to-date information. However, due to changes in legislation and acceptable practices, we recommend you check with the links in this handbook. We have peppered this document with loads of web links that should be up to date if you have any doubt about the guidance in this printed material. So at this point, we would like to open up the floor for anyone with questions, or you can raise your hand and we'll try to unmute you, or you can also type a question in the question box. Nathan, do we have any questions?
We do not.
No. Okay. All right. Well, I guess we can go ahead and I will hand the presentation over to Gina, who is going to start getting into some of the material of today's webinar.
Very good, Andrew.
Uh,
I just have to show my screen. One moment. All right, can you see my screen?
I think you're going to need to go up to where it says slideshow up at the
Yeah.
top. Yeah, and try that way rather than that tiny.
Okay, yes.
And then make sure the
Yeah, but
yeah, you need to show the correct screen.
you know, it's been working fine all day
Until
long.
this
Then
point.
when it gets to the point that you need to show the right, it just doesn't work.
I tell you, I tell you
I'm
what.
working
Why
on
don't
it.
you?
It's coming up.
Oh, is it? Okay,
Yes.
great. There it is.
I'm so sorry. I apologize. Please be patient. One more minute, or maybe even less.
It's showing up well.
Okay, I got it.
Except we're seeing a different screen
No,
now.
yeah, we're gonna switch it. Okay, all right. Do you see the screen?
Don't see the right one yet.
No.
I tell you what. Let me give you keyboard and mouse control of my computer, and I will let you run it from here. It's easy enough.
we see it now, Gina.
Yeah, it's coming up.
Oh, okay.
Yes. Okay. Well, thank you everyone for being patient. I'm so sorry. Usually with webinars, things like this happen. We did practice. Everything came up right, but anyways, good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for participating today. I'm Gina Bognani with Systems Planning Office, and today we'll be covering Chapter 2 of the Transportation Impact Handbook. For some of you who have seen the handbook, this handbook has 5 chapters, and over the next 6 to 8 months, we will go into some more details about each of these chapters. But today, we're going to start putting some emphasis on Chapter 2 only, which is the transportation impact process. This chapter is so large that we might end up taking another or maybe 2 sessions to discuss issues related to this chapter. As we mentioned earlier, Chapter 2 is still the largest chapter since it is most closely related to our role as a transportation agency. But the good news is, as we mentioned previously, much of the basic guidance on how to determine the impact of new growth is still the same as it was in 2010. But however, philosophies, calculation techniques, and improvements to our models need to be reflected in this chapter. These are objectives of any transportation impact study. Number one of most important is safety. We know that we're going to have changes in growth, but we want to make sure that we are prepared and the new development that can be done in such a way that does not degrade safety nor deficiencies of the transportation. It is actually possible that improvements being made for new development would actually improve the safety and efficiency of the existing condition. Any of you that have done this work before know that there are different opinions and philosophies. The study is the best opportunity to bring people and different agencies to an agreement at the beginning. The staff at the FDOT have reviewed numerous types of impact analysis. In the past, development of regional impacts or DRIs was a very big portion of our business. However, as you all know, the legislation has changed, and due to growth management statute changes, our role at FDOT has changed and has been lightened. So very, very few DRIs. We still work closely with local governments in reviewing changes to their local government comprehensive plans. Most local governments still use concurrency as a growth management tool. And for those of you that do not know what concurrency is a broad term meaning that the local government sets certain service standards for their transportation system, and developers are responsible for fixing their impacts to keep the transportation system operating at the recommended level service standard. And most of these studies are large scale and have long-term horizons. Again, here at DOT, we do review around to 2,000 driveway permits a year, and many of these require some sort of short horizon, small scale analysis. Well, I might as well say this right now. We have made decision to not to simply only go over the material in the handbook, but also point out some of the modern critiques regarding the practice of site impact analysis. If you have the handbook ready, or later on, if you go to page 18 of the handbook, you'll see an exhibit that shows a basic framework. It is a good one, and it's pretty broad. And as you can see, we start with the methodology development, then we go to study of the existing condition, projecting future conditions, and then we come to the mitigation analysis. Is improvement necessary, or whatever the situation might be. Okay, the first part of the framework is the methodology development. Methodology development is an essential component in any transportation impact analysis. During this phase, local government policies for traffic analysis play a very important role. The process at this level should define the data, the techniques, the practice, and assumptions that will be used while preparing the traffic impact analysis. And at this level, most parties should reach agreement regarding the data to be considered and the basic factors that will be used in this study. And then next one is the existing condition. So when we do an existing condition analysis, it's just to develop a basis for comparison for future conditions. So we need to look at our existing condition. We need to know at what level we are, if we do have capacity before the improvement comes in, and create a basis and then compare it with when the development comes in, and to see how the development is impacting our transportation systems. And then future analysis, it's for future horizon year, it's a forecast to develop future background condition, and also the background condition assessment then served as the basis for the comparison to future condition with the proposed sites for the future. The future condition analysis is where the future impact of proposed development or amendments are assessed. Once the trip are assigned to the network, then measures of effectiveness such as quality level of service and quality level of service is calculated just to see how the development again is impacting, and that's when the mitigation takes place. And let me mention the for mitigation, it can be a form of enhancing operational efficiency, reducing demand, or increasing system capacity. Keep in mind though, mitigation should be relative to the size of the transportation that's impacting the transportation system. So we have to follow the size of the development, the number of trips that they generate. So methodology development is the setting the stage for agreement. Okay, it begins with the applicant contacting local government, regional planning council, FDOT, or other agency. A formal methodology development process is really important, and it's at the beginning it's required for some types of development. For some of you who attended our last webinar, we did talk about the some of the checklists that we have in our Transportation Impact Handbook. During the methodology development, I would like to point out that there is a checklist specifically for DRIs, and that's in our Transportation Impact Handbook. But this checklist is a very, very useful tool. And just to let you know, it's on page 165 in the Transportation Impact Handbook. But it's a very large checklist. It can be used, well, it is developed for DRIs or development of regional impacts. But you can also use this checklist, trim it down and use it for any size of development that you're reviewing. I also would like to remind you that it is much easier to navigate the handbook with the use of bookmark panel, which is similar to the interactive contents. As you can see here, you can click on any of these contents and the page will show up. As an example, we highlighted the methodology meeting, and as you can see, the page methodology meeting came up. So it's really, really easy to navigate through the bookmarks and get to the right page that you're looking for. All right, let's get to the impact area, the size of the development, and how far we have to analyze the transportation system, and what are the measures, what we look for. One of the first questions raised is the size of the study area, sometimes called the impact area. And this is usually determined by the regulations or policies of the local government. So that's set by the local governments or other local agencies, not by us. One of the simplest ways to determine a study area is the use of a standardized radius as a form to determine, based on the number of trips, how far we have to go. Based on the guidance that we have in our Transportation Impact Handbook, it says between 50 to 100 cars per hour, you may want to go half a mile radius. More than 100 cars or vehicles per hour, you may want to go 3 miles. So depending on the impact of the development, how big the development is, the number of vehicles that specific development produces, that's the guidance we should follow. And I'd like to point out, looking at this exhibit, as you can see right here, it says this is wrong, and it says using a radius, even though the picture is based on the percentage of the maximum service volume. Okay, we're going to go into more detail and talk about the maximum service volume and also the impact area. Well, first, this picture that you can see came from the Transportation Concurrency Best Practices Guide, and this document was done by Center for Urban Transportation Research for the agency then called Transportation Department of Community Affairs. Okay, and this agency is now the Community Development, which is a section of the Department of Economic Opportunity. So this guidebook is, I mean, it's now out of print, but you can, if you want to have access to this document, download it, you can go to this page and have access to this document. And for those of you that were not in attendance last month, simply concurrency is the practice of establishing a certain level of service and trying to make sure our facilities are operating at an acceptable level of service. So when a development comes in and has an impact on that transportation system, due to mitigation, we need to improve the impact and bring the operation back to the acceptable level of service. So that's what concurrency means. So in order to understand the more difficult concept of a percentage of the maximum service volume, we need to understand a little bit of information about maximum service volumes as described in the Florida Level of Service Handbook and tables. Let's say, for instance, that a certain community has adopted a level of service standard of D for its roadways, okay? And let's say that the community has determined that any new development that adds 5% or more above that acceptable level of service, that should be, that's an impact and should be studied. So let's look at this example. This is Deerwood Avenue. It's a 4-lane divided arterial. It's an urbanized area, class 2, and it's we are looking at it as peak hour, just to see at the peak hour how many vehicles this roadway or this development produces. And as I said, let's say this local government has accepted level of service D for its roadways. And so we'll look at level of service D, which is the maximum service volume for level of service D is 1,630. Okay. Before I go any further, let me show you where we got the level 1,630 from. So we looked at the urbanized area. As I said, Deerwood is an urbanized area, and then I said it's class 2. Class 2 is based on, as you can see, posted a speed of 35 miles per hour or slower. So Deerwood is an urbanized class 2 arterial, and it's a 4-lane divided. But I said we're going to look at the peak hour, okay? So during the peak, I'm looking at one direction, which is 2-lane. And the local government adopted level of service D, and it is 1,630 maximum service volume for this letter grade. Okay, now let's go and do the calculation based on this service volume tables. Okay, so we said the acceptable level of service or the standard is 1,630. So this development produces 300 peak hour directional trips. So what do we do to see the impact? We divide 300 by 1,630, and that equals to 18%. So this development has 18% more than the requirement. Remember we said 5% or more, that's an impact. So this is very significant. This is way over 5%. So again, mitigation takes place, again, depending on the impact, how big the impact is. We need to bring back the transportation system back to a safe and efficient facility. So the percentage of significance for maximum service volume can have a dramatic impact on the size of the study area. So this is an example from a study of a development regional impact, or DRI, in Sarasota. This is what this study area looks like if they use 5% maximum level of service volume for the level of service C, for instance. Let's say government has adopted level of service C, and they have set 5% the cap. So if the development impact goes above 5%, that's an impact. And notice when we change from 5% to 3% of the level of C, and it's going to make the area go larger. That means they reduce the threshold from 5% to 3%. But again, the local government that has set the criteria wants the developers look at a broader network and incorporate those roadways that this development may have an impact on it. And as you can see, this portion right here, it's not connected. This is the south part and this is the north part. It's not connected, and you know, it's because these roadways have 4 lanes, and the southern portion of this area, it's a 2-lane, so you don't want to combine the 2-lane with the 4-lane, because this 2-lane, really, if you include it in your analysis, it has an adverse impact of the level of service. So you may want to analyze this separately, and this is why we wanted to use this example. With that said, I'm going to turn it over to Gary to do this poll, and then we'll get to the questions if there are any.
All right. The question we have here is, have you ever participated in a methodology meeting or its preparation? So I'm going to launch that. All right. Going to wait for a few more votes. Okay. I'm going to close the polling. I'm going to share it with you, and you can see that, you know, this is a pretty experienced group we have here, and I think this is probably a good time to let you know that we understand that many of you have a lot of practical experience, and you can share it with us through the question and answer box. If we answer a question and you want to add to it, feel free to. We do understand that this is not an entire group of people that are beginner. Matter of fact, I'm looking at the list of people here. Quite a few of you are definitely experts. So I'm going to hide the poll and hand it back over to Gina.
All right, Gary, I think we get to the questions next. Okay.
Looks like we have a question from James Gugliotti. He asks, are site reviews conducted in district offices or in Tallahassee? If they're conducted in the district offices, are the studies reviewed by the central office to monitor consistency?
They are done at the district level with the involvement of the professionals necessary to do this. Sometimes it's planning. It's usually a combination of planning, design, and traffic operations. Now, the central office does not monitor consistency per se. However, having been here quite a long time, what happens in some cases, is that some of the professionals that are working with the district are not satisfied with the analysis, and it does get bumped up to the central office. So even though we are we're very decentralized, the people that do the analysis communicate with each other, around the state. They attend the same trainings, but as someone said earlier, a lot of this is as much art as science, and you will have disagreements, and sometimes the disagreements do reach a higher level. And that's what I can tell you. But no, we do not review their studies just on a regular basis.
Doug Kelly asks if we could explain the concept of background traffic.
Doug, you asked the $30 million question. We're not, in this particular session, we're not going over the concept of background traffic. However, with the latest in the growth management statute changes, and I'm speaking of 2011, 2012, there's a concept of background traffic, and there's a concept of future background traffic that goes into some calculations. I can tell you that there is no absolute agreement on what future background traffic is. Ideally, what you're trying to get at is what would the traffic be if that development was not adding traffic to the system. And of course, in the past and still today, we'll use a 1% or 2% growth factor, and then the developers, engineers, professionals come in and say, look, our development is part of that 1%. So this sort of things get batted around quite a bit. It's handled in modeling, and we will get into it more in future sessions on why, let's just say if you're running a regional model and your development took an entire traffic analysis zone, that you might think, well, I'm going to take all the development out of this traffic analysis zone, and then we'll see what it's like without us. And that is not the way you can do it. And there's reasons that I will not go into right now, but when we get into the modeling, we will. Background traffic, no easy definition for this, and it's usually done through iterations of discussions and model runs, as well as looking at historical growth. And I hope that answers your question enough at this point.
All right.
I got a question here that you can't see the attendee list. Well, I'm going to try something and hope that it doesn't mess everything up, but I'm going to make it so the attendees can see the attendee list, and I hope that works for you. You'll see something in your control panel that says attendees, and you should be able to pull it out and expand it and see which of your friends are here. If you can see the attendees and you're an attendee yourself, if you would raise your hand just so I can make sure it's working. All right, it works. Sorry, I did not have that going. All right, thanks a lot.
All right, I think that answers the questions that we had.
I guess it's time for me to start my section. So once again, if I'll make myself the presenter, and I'm making myself the presenter, and if you just wait a moment, I will get the right screen going here. And let me start my slideshow. Okay. The FDOT Site Impact Handbook was originally written to give guidance for the review of developments of regional impact, or DRIs as they're called sometimes. Changes to local government and comprehensive plans also. These are essentially the largest developments or land use changes that are studied. These usually include the addition of thousands of dwelling units, millions of square feet of commercial or office, and they're usually phased over a long period of time. At this time, I'd like to give you a few samples of the two different kinds of impact studies that we at FDOT review, so you can get an idea between the difference in complexity and scale. Here are the two examples that we're going to use to show you the two kinds of traffic studies. On the left, you see something from a comprehensive plan review from a community in Central Florida. And on the right, you see a small portion of a traffic study for a Walmart in Dade County. At this point, we got, large scale, small scale. I'd like to know what kind of impact studies are you involved in? You have a choice here. As I suspected, this is a group of Renaissance people here. So I am going to close the poll and show it to you. And you can see here that most of you do a range of developments, and that's large and small. And you have some people there that do small developments, and maybe some of them are in access management, driveway permitting, or some small site plan review. So I appreciate you answering that. The long-range scale type of site impact analysis usually deals with numerous transportation facilities over a large, expansive area. So it looks at the impacts and the possibility of major transportation improvements far from the actual development that's being studied. The kind of tools that are used in this study are different than the kinds of tools that are used in the analysis of smaller scale studies. Even though the smaller scale studies can be very intense, like the Walmart. So the long range kind of studies do take a look at remote offsite improvements. As you'll see in this next slide, this is a spreadsheet that obviously used a version of our generalized service volume tables, lookup tables, to look at what either existing or future projected levels of service are going to be. Continuing on with this same study, you can see that the spreadsheet model they're using quite simply just finds a rough level of service, and a change proposes a change to a highway system. Here you see 2 to 4 lanes, 2 to 4 lanes. Sometimes it would show no changes. It also gives you an estimate of the future level of service. Notice once again, these are very broad factors being used, like numbers of lanes. Now, the short range improvements that we showed you a small portion of, this is a screenshot from a study of that proposed Walmart in Dade County. The study was done as part of a driveway access permit. In this example, Walmart is going to be built into with one phase and have an immediate impact on the surrounding system. The things that are looked at are not necessarily widening of numerous roads in the region. Usually the study concentrates on driveways and signals surrounding and very close to the proposed development. Okay, as we expand this portion of the study, you can see the projected volumes, average speeds, level of service at each of the intersections. This is because the most important features of traffic for this kind of study that you find in access permitting here at DOT are different than the kind that you will find in the initial analysis of a development of regional impact or a big change to comprehensive plans. This is a portion of the traffic signal progression analysis that was done for that Walmart. And this is the outcome and output of a queuing analysis that was done as part of that study of the Walmart. Now, this slide is not found in our handbook, but it is found in one of our newer documents called the Traffic Analysis Handbook, which goes into best practices for uses of many different kinds of tools. But this is a pretty this is a pretty information-rich slide here. So what I want to do is let you know that there are links in this presentation that you will be able to use as we send them to you, and there are links within the Site Impact Handbook also. While I'm at it, when you have your Impact Handbook open, if you go to the last pages of it, you will see that we have replicated every link used in the handbook chapter by chapter as one of the appendices. And that can lead to some pretty interesting surfing. So when you get a copy of the PDF of this presentation, you will have the ability to have all the links, even if something was done after the production of the impact handbook. All right. One thing I want to point out is that this GSTV stands for Generalized Service Volume Tables. Those are produced by us at Florida DOT, and probably one of the most used tools we have. You saw a screenshot of one earlier where Gina was talking, and LOS Plan is the computerized version of our simplified highway capacity-based planning model that's used for arterials and freeways, and also for some rural roads also. As you go further up here into the highway capacity manual, the highway capacity software, Sidra, Synchro, SimTraffic, VisSim, and CoreSim, what you're looking at are micro simulation models that have a lot of application, especially for very close to a site, also for weaving analysis at interchanges when you need to know a more precise level. So within the traffic analysis handbook, there is a much more detailed discussion of what are the recommended software and tools for the different kinds of studies. Again, you will find, and we will send you a link to the traffic analysis handbook. I'm giving you a chance to just quickly look at some of the kinds of studies and the recommended tools. Okay, got another question I'd like to ask you, and that is, what transportation tools do you use or have you used in your job? Yeah, it's coming out again as you guys are definitely the Renaissance people here. I'm going to close the poll in a few moments, give you a chance. You know, some of the people who create these tools would like to know, this is a good marketing information here, that the highway capacity software and manual is the most used, and our level of service tools come in second to those that are here. Synchro is also very popular these days, and VisSim, which is a super micro analysis, is becoming more and more popular. And then there are others that are not listed, and I apologize. They only give me so many slots that I can have for multiple choice. All right. So what time period do we study? Big question. This is one of the main questions that we need to answer in order to do a good impact study. On page 26 of the handbook, I've adapted a 1981 table that I found in a Public Roads magazine when I was a young transportation planner in Atlanta. And Paul Box, who put this together, gave recommendations on what he considered were the, and the term here is critical hour, not necessarily peak hour. You hear a lot about the term peak hour. Most of the time, a peak hour studied here in Florida, if I had to make a guess, most of the time they study the PM peak or the evening rush hour. However, there are exceptions, and it's usually the area, the critical hour is not necessarily the peak hour of the community. Sometimes the critical hour where the development's traffic and the surrounding traffic reach a maximum. Easy enough for an office building, it usually has the same peak hour as the city or community. However, hospitals, factories, primary schools, fast food, they have different peaking hours that are worth studying. In addition, shopping centers have their peak hour of traffic. It's on Saturday. And this means that, you know, for all practical purposes, for improving the transportation system around a new shopping center or mall, you would use regular PM peak hour. But if you are working for a designer for the actual mall or large shopping center, you would like to have an idea of what the Saturday traffic is to better design the accesses to that shopping center. And that's what we're talking about, access design. Okay. And fortunately, and we're not going to get into it, fortunately, the Institute of Transportation Engineers Trip Generation Manual, what is called today, is in fact has Saturday traffic, especially, and Christmas traffic for shopping centers. Another factor that needs to be considered is the time in the future which you're planning these improvements. For large developments and major amendments to local comprehensive plans, you're going to be looking 5 to 10 years out, and sometimes even more. And I think this might be a good time to mention that with the changes that happened in the growth management laws, the FDOT role in most cases is advisory, and even though it's advisory, you know, we would like to be involved. And the thing for us to know at DOT is that we don't really make the rules. So if we are looking at development of regional impact or a large development, and the local government says you're going to do 3, 7, and 10, then the local government makes that call. In the same way that the local government will make the call of whether the study area is based on a 5% significance level, as Gina pointed out, or a 3%, or in fact they may just have a simplified, if you have development proposed of this side, it's going to go out 10 miles or 5 miles. So we do work, and we need to work closely with the local governments to make that analysis conform to the local government development regulations. At the bottom you see here access permits, and when you get down to that level, many of the times you're just looking at the impacts when a business opens. So remember that a majority of our driveway access permit applications are for businesses that usually open up within one phase. I'm not saying they open up in 6 months, but it's in one phase. And many times that traffic is added to existing traffic for analysis purposes. What you see on this slide is a typical day's worth of traffic done by hour. You see highlighted the morning and the evening peaks. Many times we look at the evening peak hour as the most appropriate time to study the impacts of a new development. Under most circumstances in an urbanized area, the percentage of peak to a day is somewhere between 8 and 11, 9 and 11, 8 and 12%. And that is just what a typical day might look like. Unfortunately, for those people who have not had traffic engineering study or traffic counting study, K-factor isn't exactly the same thing as a proportion of a typical day. And it is a complex issue that used to take a lot of time to discuss and agree upon until Florida DOT has established what we call a standard K-factor for different kinds of roads and different kinds of areas. And this is in your handbook, and so you can see we have area type and we have roadway type. And hopefully this was able to simplify some of the analysis. I know this is not the time for it, but I see questions, coming in pretty solidly here. So I'm gonna.
Gary, one of the questions, let me answer this question. One of the questions is that does FDOT have a policy in preference of what tools to be used? For instance, should they use HCS, Synchro, or other tools? There is no policy to say which tool has to be used. It all depends on the agreement at the methodology level, on what the applicant or the reviewers or the local agencies sit down and agree upon to. And also it depends on the severity of the impact. For instance, at times HCS may not meet your needs. You may have to go into a simulation model such as Synchro or maybe Vistro or VESM or CORSIM. It all depends on the reviewer. It all depends on the agreement that it's set at the methodology level. So to there is no policy to say what tool should be used. But again, there is guidance that the traffic analysis handbook tells you at what level what tools should be used. But no, there is no policy.
Right, and to clarify that just a bit, if you're doing, professional engineer, doing work for the Florida Department of Transportation on, let's say, redesigning or putting in a new interchange or redesigning a corridor, yes, we do have tools that we think you should use. For the site impact, however, as we mentioned before, local government plays a gigantic role in it. We know of some local governments that have taken our generalized service volume tables and have new levels of service called F+, F++. That is their prerogative, whether the professionals here agree with it. That is their prerogative. The question really comes from the time where we used to actually have either written or unwritten standards that you had to use certain tools. And I was around then, and I think some of us here were around then, and the answer we would give is, well, you have to use the highway capacity software because our people can't review anything else. And then we realized how silly that sounded. Like, oh, the profession's going on, but we're not going to train our people or hire the consultants to do this, to move on. So that's where we've become more flexible, as Gina has pointed out. And I hope that does answer the question somewhat. Let me, yeah. So yeah, those questions were related to whether we prefer HCS over other methods. And really, I'm going to take a look at the, yeah, this will depend who you work with at the local government and at the department. And if you're, and this is not site impact we're talking about, but if you're doing an interchange analysis or making improvements or suggesting that a new interchange comes in, you will have to appease not only FDOT engineers, but also federal highway engineers. Sometimes there are philosophical differences there. So, we went from, these are the only tools that we will use because, it makes it easier for us to review, to accepting that most of you are highly trained professionals, and most of us are highly trained professionals that may disagree on certain things, but that's why we get together for these things. That's where the methodology meeting is important, but some of these things do not even get resolved in the methodology meeting. All right. Those are the questions that are in the question box, and we also have some people whose hands are up, and possibly we can get to them the next time we get to some questions here. But right now I'm just going to go on and discuss something about existing conditions and data collection. Existing conditions is one of the most important parts of the study, in addition to doing the data collection from sources such as our own Florida traffic information online or the FDOT transportation information DVD. And if you don't know about it, we're going to show you how to get it. You make sure that this part of the study is focused on actual conditions for the places that might be impacted by new development. Sometimes it means you have to do more than just view the traffic situation. As you see here in these pictures, we're looking at not only traffic counts, but pedestrian counts and cyclists. One of your best references for the appropriate way to collect data is our own quality level of service handbook. DOT has developed this handbook and the accompanying software to do planning level analysis for highways, bus service, cyclists, and pedestrians. And since the handbook refers to the type of data that goes into these models that we use, the LOS plan and the generalized service tables, it can serve as a good reference for data collection. All right, so these are, I'm just going to quickly go over what you need is you need the site characteristics. You also need the transportation characteristics. Then you need to look at the transportation demand data and the land use and the activity that's on that land use. This is an example of a site plan that was developed for one of the most recent developments of regional impact that's in Taylor County. And it shows proposed land uses and locations in relation to the surrounding transportation system. This slide is just an example of a very simple diagram of a roadway in a very small space. It provides a lot of information critical to the analysis of these intersections. Other important information that needs to be provided should be the jurisdiction of the roadways, the area types, important classifications, and don't forget that there are other modes that are to be considered. You should be looking at the sidewalks, the bike paths, their condition, the frequency of bus routes in that area, and this should have probably gone first, is that to look at crash information. So if you can find a safety problem, there's a chance that during the improvement phase we can make the situation better for people. In the handbook, we have links to numerous multimodal documents. They are on there, and you should take a look at those, and they're constantly being updated in our public transportation. This is a sample of a simplified diagram of turning movements similar to the kind that you will need to be collecting, especially close to the site. And this is just a reminder that your signals are impacted by pedestrians, and we should be serving pedestrians, and it does make an impact in the way that you you time your signal, so it is important. Here are a few slides from our level of service training that we have recently done throughout the state. However, even if you can't make the one remaining training session that's left in Miami on June 17th and 18th, the handbook, as well as all the training materials, are available to the public, and we'll make sure that you can get it. This just shows some photos of situations that impact pedestrian level of service. So when improvements are made, you can try not only just to improve the traffic situation, but you can try to make the pedestrian safe situation more comfortable and safe. And this is just another picture of some of the features that impact pedestrian level of service. Bicycle level of service is also handled in our LOS plan and generalized service tables, as well as the highway capacity manual. And these are the different things that impact the level of service. One of the main things is the amount of traffic that's whizzing by their bicycle and the speed at which it is. Wanted to mention at this time that FDOT has recently updated its standard bicycle lane to a buffered 7-foot bike lane. This is an example in Gainesville. Okay, this is another time for questions. I see one here that I'm working down from the bottom here. The 2014 traffic counts DVDs available, and that's a good question because
Gary, that would be available in month of June, very soon.
Yes, yeah, it's usually available in the month of June. They're working on it, and that DVD is pretty amazing, as you'll find out when Andrew talks a bit about it. And these raised hands, I'm going to unmute Ernest, if you want to have the floor. Oh, okay. Gary, are you interested in saying something?
I'm wondering if they raised them when we asked them to, and they just didn't put the hands down.
What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna going to unraise everybody's hands, and you know, I like people to feel free if they feel that they need to speak their question to
We've
speak.
put all the hands down, but if you do still have a
Yeah,
question and you'd like to speak, feel free to raise your hand, and then we'll know that you have a question to
yeah,
ask.
yeah. Hey, thanks a lot. That's true. Okay, at this point, I am going to turn the presentation over to Andrew Young, and we're on the home stretch.
Okay. All right. So, an excellent place to begin your search for data would be the FDOT's Florida Transportation Information DVD, as Gary just mentioned. This DVD has information on traffic volumes, historical traffic counts, the presence of sidewalk and bicycle facilities, as well as some great analysis tools. You can order this DVD from the DOT by following the link included on the slide or by asking us after this webinar. One warning, however, is that when you get this DVD, do go to the help manual and look at the tutorial. It is a very great DVD, has a lot of great information. However, the interface is not always intuitive on the surface, so it does take a little bit of getting used to. If you follow the web link to the Florida Transportation Information website, you will see an option to download the mobile app for this. Here's a screenshot of the Florida Transportation Information mobile app available from the website for free. However, currently it is only available for the iPhone. It is not as feature-rich as the web-based version or the DVD version, but it is still really nifty and it's nice to have when you're on the go. This is a screenshot of our Florida traffic online. It has very rich data, but the interface, as I mentioned, is different in the DVD. Even though this information is readily available to you, it is different in the DVD. In addition, depending on the web traffic, it can bog down, and we have included a web link on this slide for your use as well. All right, at this point we'd like to ask another poll. Before this webinar, were you familiar with any of these resources? So,
All right,
Gary?
let me get that poll going. All right. I have to admit that even though it's been there for a while, that I hadn't seen the iPhone application until yesterday, and it is they're working on getting another contract to get one working for Android.
That's great.
Yeah.
Well, it looks like most of you are pretty familiar with all these tools. You know, shouldn't be surprising to us as you're all very experienced professionals.
Okay. Well, for those of you that said no, then you are in luck because you will have access to all of these, and if you have any trouble finding them, just get in touch with us. And I'll hide the results now.
All right, now after giving you all this information on how to get online and DVD data, I would like to wrap up the presentation with something from Mike on traffic. This is how important field visits are. Or, I'm sorry, the Mike on traffic post is about how important the field visits are. As I mentioned previously, I have tried to link very practical data from Mike's website to help us. This one's titled Top 9 Things to Review with the Field Visit. Basically, the most important thing here is that Google Maps and Street View and aerials are not always up to date. Trees and other objects cover up important information. It is also important to look at the operations of the traffic, pedestrian movements, transit boarding and alighting, etc. in the actual area that will be studied. In our next webinar, we will discuss trip generation. We will also look at some of the issues around future conditions and the inherent problems with projecting the future. We will also discuss about two relatively new initiatives at Florida DOT, the Complete Streets Initiative, and the encouragement of roundabouts as traffic solutions rather than traffic signals. Here's a list of the future webinars that we plan to give. As you can see, we expect sessions 3 and 4 to also cover information on Chapter 2, since it is the largest and most pertinent to the work we do at Florida DOT. The following sessions will be on comprehensive planning, developments of regional impact, and what's new in transportation mitigation. We wanted to leave you with one slide that has links to many of our important information on tools and training. We hope to get into these great resources in more detail over the course of this year and our future webinar trainings. If you have questions related to these or any other resources at Florida DOT, please do contact us. The way you can contact us is getting in touch with us via email. Feel free to send emails to more than just one or two of us, and that we will make sure to get your question answered. We would like to thank you for attending this presentation. We should be able to send you this presentation with all of its links sometime in the next day or two. We should also have a recorded version of this webinar within 1 or 2 weeks. All right, with that, we will go ahead and end this webinar. However, we will open the floor. We will open the floor to questions. Sorry, Gary.
No, it's actually more than a question. Gary Kramer mentioned something that I didn't know, is that if you go to the Florida Traffic Online, that the 2014 data is already up.
Oh, wonderful.
Yeah.
That's, thanks for bringing that up, Gary. Yes, much appreciated. I guess the online version is a little quicker to adapt than the DVD. I'm just keeping an eye on the questions here, seeing if we get any more coming in.
Well, this is the time where we
I didn't want to miss
say goodbye, and we really do appreciate all the attention that you give to us. And I just got another note here that to be careful, the 2014 online data has errors in it. And yep, this is our statistics people. This is one of their months where they keep their doors closed and do a lot of quality assurance. So the link for the Florida Traffic Online is in this presentation, and you will be getting that very soon. If you need it now, email us now. We'll get it to you. All right? So is this the point where we say goodbye?
All right. Thank you, everyone, for attending, and we'll see you at future Site Impact webinars.
Thank you all.
Thank you.